We have three roasters tonight, and the first one is a longtime Albany, or a resident of Albany, grew up in Albany, moved to Lincoln City, but you guys will recognize this name. Mr. John Brennaman grew up in Albany and graduated from Albany Union in the class of 1960. He graduated from Pacific University, who are the boxers, correct? As an optometrist, and while there, met his wife of nearly 50 years, Jan, who is also with us tonight. Welcome, Jan. John and Jan spent 1967 to 1992 in Newport, raising two daughters as an optometrist and small business persons. While in Newport, John got involved in politics and was mayor for 8 years and state senator for another 8 years. John and Jan moved to the Valley in '92, where John was a contract lobbyist until retiring last year. John met Wally while representing the Oregon Funeral Directors Association. I might add, John is the much younger brother of local retired teacher Jerry Brennaman. Ladies and gentlemen, John Brennaman.
Thank you, Rich. I was hoping this would be under a light so I could see a little bit better, but I'll try to make do. I could give a flashlight to Wally. Thank you, Rich. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and elected officials, Wally and your family, and Coach Holman, my 1960 basketball coach when we went to state that year. What can you say about a man who came from, excuse me, I lost my voice earlier, humble beginnings and rose to the very heights of his profession solely on intelligence, grit, and the will to push on where others might fall back. A man who has so distinguished himself amongst his peers that no right-thinking person can say a word against him. Well, enough about me. Well, in his younger days, Wally was an example to all of us. He didn't smoke, drink, run around, and there was never any evidence that he ever tried any mind-expanding drugs. When Wally got out of school to be a funeral director, he took an aptitude test. The examiner told him, "You have a splendid future in this field where a close relative holds a senior management position." What's in the family business, however, Wally was a business person. He thought margins were the heavy black lines that you had to stay between when you colored. Was he an organizational genius? He once fouled up a 2-car funeral cassette. As you know by now, you heard I worked for Wally and the Oregon Funeral Directors for 20 years. I always enjoyed working for Wally, being his lobbyist, sitting in for him at meetings. In fact, the only thing that ever bothered me was going to the dentist for him. Wally took over 2 of my clients when I retired. He's now a lobbyist, as you've heard. On the job, he is sort of like the piano player in a bordello. He's near the action, but he doesn't get totally involved. We all know Wally plays poker with friends on a very regular schedule. Renee said he came home a little worse for wear from the game last week, came up the driveway much too fast, banged into the garage doors, knocked one off the hinges. She said that, thank God he didn't have the car. Renee told me that they've been married 16 years and she hasn't spoken a single word to him in that time. "My God, what's wrong?" She said, "Nothing, I just didn't want to interrupt him." Wally's sons are the image of him. Oh well, at least they're healthy. And Wally's stepdaughter, Melissa, told me recently about a young man who came to Wally to ask permission to marry her. Wally said, "So you want to be my son-in-law, eh?" And the boy said, "Well, not really, but if I marry your daughter, there's no way around it." Wally's health has been relatively good over the years, but recently his doctor told him to give up half his sex life. Poor guy doesn't know whether to give up talking about it or thinking about it. Anyway, Wally says he always profits from his mistakes. If that's true, Wally, you're going to have a banner year. But on the serious side, I've really enjoyed working with Wally over the last 20 years and with my association with OFDA, incidentally the last folks to ever let you down. You've become a very good friend, and thanks, Wally, for inviting me to participate in your roast.
Thank you, John, for those insightful remarks. We all feel we know Wally a little better now. Our next presenter is a longtime Albany resident, born and raised. I have known Jerry Bomey as long as I have known Wally Ordeman. And Jerry is a Calapooya Middle School, South Albany, class of 1978 graduate. Went to Oregon State University, where he graduated in 1982. His wife, Sue, is with him tonight. Thanks for being here, Sue. They are the proud parents of Grant and Allie. You may recognize Allie's name from the sports page. She's quite a soccer player and got some nice press coverage earlier this year. Jerry is a partner in the Bomey and Running accounting firm. And he has known Wally a long time. I think their initial meetings were in about the 3rd grade at the Albany Boys and Girls Club through basketball. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me present Jerry Bomey.
Thanks a lot for coming tonight. This is really awesome. Oops. Wally asked me not to say that tonight. Sure. It's a great looking crowd of presenters. Richie and Brian and John. Oh, and Wally. Doesn't he have that look? The one only a grandma can love. Look down here in front of me and I wonder, who's running the shop? You got all the ornaments here. Although I did see that Wally picked up something from the service this afternoon. I started putting my information together, got my book, met with Alice, got rid of that. Doesn't have any family appropriate. Not many stories about Wally that are family appropriate. Actually, I'm thinking of a couple right now, I can't tell. So, I'm going to take and start off. First of all, I heard some bad news that West Albany is going to move up to 6A. A lot of people sad about that, not Wally. He's never seen 6 A's on a report card in his life. Long time ago, a number of years ago, I got involved with the Albany, East Albany Lions, and we do the iBank. And so, my first call ever was about 2 in the morning. This is the iBank, and we need you to go down and pick up a set of eyes. Okay, Fisher Funeral Home. Ring the doorbell and someone will meet you. I'm going, yeah, candid camera or what? So I go down there 2 in the morning, and I ring the doorbell, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. Pretty soon, there comes this movement. I see long apron, kind of a limp. I'm thinking, Igor, really? Nope, Wally. Go inside. He goes, I got a little paperwork, da-da-da-da-da. Hands me a box. I said, what do I do with this? Take it to the bus depot 7 in the morning. 2 o'clock, 7 in the morning. What do I do with it for 5 hours? Wally goes, you just take it home, put it in the fridge. Make sure you tell your wife, though. So, what a guy, you know, awesome. He's just, sorry. So I'm going to, of course, tell the story that I told him I wouldn't tell. He's 18 years old, he graduates from high school. He's off to Hawaii. This is a solo trip to Hawaii. All by himself, got his own place. He takes, gets all decked out, goes down to the beach. He strikes up a conversation with the 2 best looking gals on the beach. Now this is his story, you know, so you got to kind of weigh this out. He talks, you know, where are you from, da-da-da-da-da. Pretty soon, he's got a phone number. He heads back to the old motel. He gets all showered, shaved. He gets the app. He clips his nose hairs. I mean, he is serious about this. And so he takes it, grabs the phone, he dials it up. Thank you for calling Domino's. What can you take for your order? Didn't see those gals again. One of my really good memories with Wally, of course, is out on the golf course. And we're playing out at Twisting Tree one day, and we're walking down the backside, one of the par 5s, 15 I think it is, and you hear the crew out there, you know, stroke, faster, faster, yada. Wally's explaining to me what all's going on, and we get up towards his ball, about 60 yards out. He pulls out his sand wedge, gives it that cute little wiggle, with the utmost respect. The cute little wiggle he gets and dumps it about 15 feet in front of him. He does not stop. He continues around in a discus-type motion and throws the sand wedge over the trees into the river. That's a true story, by the way. The first thing he says is, I always hated that sand wedge. The second thing he is, God, I hope I didn't hit the crew team. So, let me see here. I got my phone. I know I don't have a lot of time though, but I did put out an email to a couple of people that I know, and boy, the response was overwhelming. Everybody wanted a little poke at Mr. Ordeman. So I'm going to read one from an individual that I got, and it goes, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Wonk. First and foremost, I apologize for my absence, which can't be helped. At least one Ordeman is obligated to be out saving the world on a regular basis. And Wally sure isn't going to fit that particular quota. At any rate, when Jerry informed me that my beloved Uncle Wonk was being roasted, I was immediately shocked. How could such an outstanding individual as my dear uncle be even remotely eligible for such lambasting? How could you possibly roast a man whose expert advice to his dear nephew to join a fraternity was followed by an emergency lunchtime move-out less than a week later? Nonsense. Oh, absolutely. I was there, by the way. We were moving. True story again. Is it realistic to lampoon such a dedicated academic who was able to parlay most of a bachelor's degree in English literature and a wealth of experience in the Sigma Phi Epsilon social director into an associate's degree in mortuary science? I find it ridiculous that anyone would impugn the character of a, these are big words for me, by the way, I'm a senior accountant. It's ridiculous that anyone would impugn the character of a dedicated sportscaster with an extensive background in such manly sports as baseball, rugby, hockey. Wait, Wally played tennis and basketball. Well, at least it wasn't something like golf. Plays that too. Come to think of it, my dear uncle's taste in music is pretty questionable too. Come on, Wonk, Barry Manilow, really? And as a former KB or a VR disc jockey, I speak from experience. Playing faithfully by Journey may have attracted the women in 1982, but it sure didn't work in 2004. Thanks for that golden nugget of advice. But I can't be too upset. While working for Wally during my college years, he once asked me to clean out his Suburban and promised that I could keep any money that I found as long as it wasn't over $20. In which case we'd have to split it. I swore up and down that I only found $19.86. Well, let's just say that the ensuing weekend involved a raucous reunion with my friends Ulysses Grant, Benjamin Franklin, and twin brothers Jack Daniels and Jose Cuervo. It's like members of the 2003 Oregon State women's volleyball team. I've said too much. It is with seriousness, Wally. I love you, and I'm fabulously lucky to have you as an uncle. You've been like a brother and or cousin I never had, and I've always counted on you for a cold brew and a good laugh. And I treasure that cold brew is true too. And I treasure the times that we've spent riding I-5, picking me up from one or more of my adventures. You've always been a fantastic advice as long as I precisely do the opposite of whatever you suggest. You've always supported me, and I dare to do great things. Still fighting Junior. So, that is his. I've got to wrap this up, although I do have one other thing. Wally, at times on our golf trips, he consumes too much of the chili and the refries and those types of things. And the first thing you always hear is, boy, roses, boy, that smells, that's a bouquet. No, Wally. This is what a bouquet of
Thank you, Mr. Bomey, for those insightful comments. You know, Wally, I was thinking before this event, Wally is just a tremendously nice guy. I mean, if you look at the people in this room and who he considers his friends, he is probably the nicest guy I know, and he's been that way since day one, since I've known him. Jerry would say the same thing. And I remember I think I was in 8th grade or 9th grade, Wally went on vacation with his parents to a Caribbean island, and he brought me back a box of cigars. And I think I asked him before he went, hey, bring me back a box of cigars. Yeah, sure. I should have asked for a bottle of Cuervo, but I asked him the box of cigars, and sure enough, Wally showed up at school with the box of cigars, and I think in those days, we might have smoked a couple, because back in those days, I think they used to have a smoking area for students. Do you remember that? Tim Reed's, yeah! And Mr. Stolick, when you were superintendent, did they have smoking areas for students?
We never had smoking areas.
Authorized smoking areas. But anyway, I was laughing about that the other day because one of the things I do in my job is I do expulsion hearings for the district, and both of us would have been expelled back then. But what a nice guy, what a just giving individual. Next up on the list of roasters is our friend Ryan Pitts. Ryan is a graduate of Junction City High School, class of '98. Go Tigers!
Yep.
He is the son of Radio Ray, many of you remember from the KGAL. He is a graduate of the University of Oregon, but a huge Beaver fan. And he first met Wally in 2005 doing West Albany games. He's recently married, just married this last July, to Jessica. And when he's not roasting Wally, he works for U.S. Bank in Eugene. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Ryan Pitts.
Just remember, I love you. Thank you. Wow, this is quite an honor to be here tonight. So many dignitaries here in the room. I never really thought this day would come for me, but I would like to thank the West Albany Sports Foundation for inducting me into the West Albany. It's obviously deserved, but I view this as the wrong speech. I thought after 8+ years of working with Wally, at the very least, I would get a Lifetime Achievement Award for putting up with this guy, but maybe next year. So let's get the actual speech here. I'm going to blame my glasses for this one. I just recently got glasses. When I went to get them, I went to my optometrist in Eugene, told him what I did, told him I worked with Wally. He actually knew you, which was amazing. Everybody knows you. And he said, you know, you're really a medical marvel. I said, why? He said, you've had 8 years with Wally without glasses. Most people don't make it more than a year without needing corrective lenses. And now that I have these, and I can see you clearly, there are some things that weren't meant to be seen in HD. I guess working with Wally does impair your vision, however. Renee, how many fingers am I holding up? It's sad. It's sad, but it does. It happens. You know, some people, some broadcasters get to work with Aaron Andrews every week. I get to work with Wally. That seems fair. That's fair. Yeah. There's a reason we're on the radio. Oh, and I wore a suit tonight. It's a formal event, but please don't mistake me for one of your clients. I hate to see that happen again. I would first like to thank my fellow roasters here tonight, Jerry Bomey, John Brennaman. There are a lot of politicians in the room. I have a few politician jokes. Had I known that it was going to be 2/3 politicians, I probably would have left some of them out. I'll obey the speed limit on the way home, I promise. I'd like to thank Bob Stolick for organizing this event. The flat Wally, which you've seen, the Where's Wally out in the lobby, was his idea. Thought that was great. Wally's been flat on air with me for 8 years. Might as well make it into a visual. And he chose a great group here tonight. Rich Sipe is the MC. Rich Sipe is to MC what Wally is to bad golf. An artist. But we'll get to golf here in a little bit. Something else did stand out to me, though. Wally kind of handpicked this group, and he chose a school principal as the MC, an accountant, a politician, and a banker to be up here with him. Apparently, he selected the only 4 people you would want to see less than a mortician. I do believe that sound you hear is Jerry prepping me for a 2014 tax audit. Sorry, I'll take it back. I'm sure we've all heard at some point or another that people's #1 fear is what I'm doing right now, public speaking. #2 is death. So, in theory, we would all rather be wheeled into your place of business than share the stage with you tonight. I've had the distinct pleasure of working with Wally for almost a decade, and I can sum up the experience of working with him pretty easily. I do all the play-by-play for West Albany. Jeff Kiter, who is here, there's Jeff. He crunches all the numbers like he's working on mission control. And all Wally has to do is pipe in with a little John Madden, boom, every now and then. That's all he has to do. But we ask for treats sometimes on the air, and when we get the treats brought to us, we always get one bag that says Wally in big letters, and it's from Mark Avery and Patricia Ike, who are actually here tonight. Thank you for the treats, we love them. But the one bag says Wally. The other bag says everyone else. That's good for the ego. Good evening, everyone. Alongside Wally Ordeman, I'm everyone else. It's okay. I enjoy being under the radar. Wally actually missed a game earlier this year, and before the next game started, somebody came up to the booth and said to him, "Well, you did a great job last week." And I didn't know whether to be complimented or insulted, but I agree, it was the best work you've done in years. That's good work. He does. I remember back at the very start, when my dad, Radio Ray, who was here tonight, told me that I'd be working with Wally on the West Albany broadcasts. Told me he was a local mortician. I thought, awesome, I love magic. And he said, no, mortician. We did this whole mortician, less-tician thing. It's very Seinfeldian. You have to know me and my dad. But I thought, you know, it's not going to be too hard for him to separate the mortician business from the broadcasting business, right? Well, here it is again, about 9 years later, I'm still trying to convince him that dead air is not a business opportunity. But we've had a lot of fun, even though he very nearly did get me killed on a trip to Bend for a playoff game. We went there, it was a postseason game. Wally had a son on the team, Alex, who's here tonight. It was cold, you got the altitude, hostile crowd, just a Molotov cocktail of football fun. So West Albany scores a key touchdown in the game, and Wally decides that he's going to celebrate by banging on the glass in front of us in the press box, which is about 1.5 inches from a group of Ben's more boisterous fans. That's brilliant. You can imagine that hometown fans watching their team lose in 20-degree weather would take this really, really well. So the only thing that could possibly go wrong would be Ben coming back to get a key score of their own, which of course they did. At which point, these same Ben fans decided to turn around and pound vigorously on the glass themselves, and I decided that I had waited too long to draft a will. I'm very happy to say West Albany went on to win. We went on to become the first high school broadcast team ever to receive a police escort back to our cars. I'm kidding about that last part though, because even the police wanted a piece of us. So yes, we've been able to travel together. We've had a couple of overnight trips, and I have earned an entirely new level of respect for Wally's wife, Renee. Not that I didn't have a high level before, she's an angel. But the sound Wally makes when he sleeps. It's not so much a snore. For a minute, I thought I had fallen asleep on the freeway, and there were trucks downshifting around me all night long. Thankfully, again, Jeff has drawn the short straw more often than I have, and he gets to share the room with Wally. I think Jeff periodically probably wakes up in a cold sweat thinking that somebody's jackhammering a jet engine tonight. I don't know if you know this, the Seahawks just set a record for the loudest crowd at a sporting event. West Albany is going to try and break that at Memorial Stadium. They're going to pipe in a recording of Wally snoring 100,000 times, and it might just tilt the earth off its axis. So. But it's not all window pounding and room sharing and sleep apnea. There's also been plenty of golfing, and I really respect Wally for figuring something out. Golfing makes your business sustainable. See, I always wondered why he played in so many golf tournaments, but it's really pretty simple. It's a tax write-off for him. Business expense. Now follow me here. You've heard of those 12-degree loft drivers. We have some golfers in here. Well, Wally has a 90-degree driver. As in, the ball takes a dead right turn right after it hits it. If you connect the dots on the shots, you can prove the Pythagorean theorem. That's all I'm saying. So you get a gallery of people on the fairway. Wally unleashes one of his trademark right-angle shots. Boom! It's instant business. 18 opportunities around. 18 chances around. It's genius, right? I don't know if you've heard, the number 4, believe it or not, is bad luck in China. That's a true story. And I heard that it started when Wally took a business trip there, played around in golf, and just shot after shot after shot. 4! You know, it scared a lot of people. They don't trust it. Could be a myth. I don't know. That ends the joke-telling portion of the evening for me. In all honesty, though, we have done this for fun. We've done this for a great cause. And despite what I've said here tonight, Wally is, without a doubt, one of the kindest, most generous people I've ever met. He knows, like every person on the planet, and I have never met anyone who has said a negative word about him. I have truly enjoyed every minute of working with him, and I was honored to have him as a groomsman at my wedding this summer. He was at my bachelor party, but I'm out of time, so we won't go. That being said, I fear no reprisal from him tonight, because he's had 8+ years. He hasn't been able to form a lucid response to me yet. I don't expect him to start tonight. And last thing I will say, Wally, it is a darn good thing you're a mortician, because I just killed it.
How do you follow that up? You might even get a box of cigars next time he goes. Wow. You know, I do want to, though, correct one thing you said. It's not true that Wally isn't a ladies' man. He is a ladies' man. Take it from me, I know. My mom is 82 years old and listens to him every Friday night. Sometimes she goes to the games, but if she does, she says, well, if I go to the game, I'm going to miss Wally. Anyway. So, turnabout is fair play. There is a segment of the program built in for Wally to have a rebuttal. It's 30 seconds long. But at this time, Wally, it is your turn to respond to the comments and let us have your side of the story. Wally Ordeman.
I'm 6'4". This thing's set for like 5'4", which makes it perfect for sight. Nothing like watching your own funeral. I highly recommend it. Cool. And Renee, for the record, the open mic thing, you know, I realize that didn't happen tonight, but we don't need that at my funeral. I would prefer not to hold this. Can you hear me? Yeah. Everybody hear me? Okay. All right. So many people here. I would have thought that maybe you could do this year's event when they asked me at somebody's house or Hasty Freeze. I'm flattered and yet still a little mystified that 200 people would plop down $50 a ticket to watch an overweight 51-year-old mortician grandfather named Wally get victimized. It's kind of funny, isn't it? I walked in and I thought, how cool, so many people here to support me in my harassment. How naive was that? Very. Can we get security over here, please? There's so many people to thank when you have an event like this. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who missed the memo that my mother would be here. My brother's over here grinning ear to ear because he knows he's number one in the will now. Tom will be leaving right after the roast tonight for Wyoming, which he does every year at this time. And if you know my brother at all, you'll agree that he's likely to slow down just a little bit as he drops off Denise at home. You might want to kiss him goodbye at about 24th and Elm, because he's got that look and he's pretty focused. I'd like to thank the roast committee, Wendy, Val, Lene, Shirley, Bob, Don, the rest. I'm going to leave some out and I apologize for that. They do such a great job and make this such a first-class event. Not like first class on an overseas flight, more like first class on Greyhound or Hank's Mojave tours, but first class nonetheless. And where's Wally? I mean, what a brilliant idea that was. I can't tell you how many people were talking about Flat Wally, and I thought the idea of a flat Wally is pretty cool.
You can take it home.
The joke was that I'm not Flat Wally. Try and keep up. Wendy. I lost my spot. How about my name plastered across the Helping Hand shelter for a month? We did go and take a picture together. Oh man, the committee did do just such a great job, and Wendy's a little wound up, kind of wound pretty tight. I don't know if any of you have organized an event with Wendy, but she gets wound pretty tight. Thought maybe Tim Reed would have to go to his traveling vet kit and give Wendy a shot. Maybe mellow her out. Not that you're an animal. Thought, you know, horse tranquilizer. I'm going to move on. I want to acknowledge some past roastees who are here tonight, none of whom warned me about the therapy that I would need after tonight, but who sought fit to purchase $50 tickets to watch me get my humbling. I did identify some, Frank Morse, Mike Martin, Tim Reed, Bob Stolick, Janet Steele, Ron Loney, I believe, possibly. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else been a
Chuck McLaren?
Chuck? Oh, Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right here in the front row. So how did I do that? I appreciate all of you truly for. Did I miss somebody else?
Dr. Dick.
Oh, Dr. Dick.
Back in the old days.
That's back in the old days. That's when we did Stallings. I keep losing my place. Echoes from the crowd. Bob, I do appreciate you describing me as low-hanging fruit. Mayor Canopa's here, Representative Olson's here, Representative Gelser's here, Will Tucker's here. It's not even an election year. I want to acknowledge my coworkers who were just a little bit too eager to see this tonight. Jeff and Rob. Dan was sick tonight. He wasn't able to join us, but I'm glad you guys are here. North Albany Elementary. 10 of Rone's. 10 of... Oops. Rone. 10 of... 10 of Renee's coworkers here tonight, and I'm not sure what's been said in that staff room to warrant this, but I don't know, maybe you just want to be able to properly console Renee tomorrow. But Patty, I will tell you that you should be the target of this at some point, because I would pay $51. I do have some special guests here tonight that I'd like to acknowledge. My family seated around this table, my wife Renee, Melissa, Perry, Alex, my brother Tom, his wife Denise, my sister-in-law, and my mother Alice, able all to be here with us tonight. My wife's brothers, Jerome and Paul, and their wives Denise and Marilyn are here as well, which just absolutely thrilled me. They are, you don't need to applaud for them. And I'll tell you why. Pinko Kami Duck fans. And they have been roasting me for years. Baseball's just right around the corner. I do want to thank my brother Tom, who did delay his trip to Wyoming. He goes every year. And it's kind of what we do. And you think I'm going to make a joke here, and I'm really not. Tom and I do this. You know, everybody says that they can work with family. Not everybody can. And we have pulled it off for 101 years. And Tom and I cover for each other. We, we just have such a great coordination, and the fact that he did stay while I was for this, for me to be honored. I know truly why he stayed. But I do want to thank you for staying. I have a very close friend. I have two actually that I went to college with. One was able to be here with us tonight. One was not. We met on the first day that we set foot on Oregon State's campus. The three of us talk, text, or email probably 2 or 3 times every week for the last 33 years. Scott, we call him Schmuckley because that's truly his middle name. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Scott Waldron. I want to thank certainly the roasters. I'm going to come back to you in a minute. We work in a world, believe it or not, where laughter is very important. Humor. For ourselves, for the families we serve, and as a mechanism for remembering the lives that we are charged with honoring. Sometimes circumstances are just plain funny. Stories are funny. Memories are funny. We don't believe humor is irreverent. We think it's therapeutic. And we use the tools that we have to deal with stressful situations. Sometimes that means humor. We learned that from our dad. Dad died at 62 after having 5 heart attacks over the course of 16 years and died of cancer. And never lost his sense of humor. And we learned from that as well. And we use humor tonight not to honor me, but to honor CASA. And these people are absolute angels. They overachieve for those children that are struggling just to matter. CASA is quietly making a huge difference in the lives of struggling youth, and their efforts are worthy of our continued support. I met with Lene Garrett a few weeks ago, to learn more about CASA. And when you have a spare hour, please do that too. She won't pound you for money. She might suggest a volunteer spot. But this organization is making a difference, and they deserve our community support. I also need to acknowledge the role of the Kiwanis Club in all of this. Kiwanis Club used to do the roast for the benefit of Kiwanis, and the many worthy projects that the Kiwanis Club has done in our community. Playgrounds, child safety, all sorts of worthy civic projects. The Kiwanis Club has deferred the revenue of the annual roast to CASA. What the Kiwanis Club does is noble. They still accomplish so much for our community, and I encourage your support for any service club in our community that strives to make our community better. And yes, Tom, that means Rotary too. That being said, let me turn my attention to these guys. John, I'm going to start with you. And you can't hear me anyway, so I'm going to direct my comments to your lovely wife, Jan. Ironically, John was the lobbyist for the hearing aid people for many years.
What do you say?
She's leaning over to John right now and saying, "He said you're very smart." I have worked with John on legislative things for the better part of the last 10 to 15 years, and when he decided to retire as a lobbyist, he suggested me as his replacement with 2 organizations. So at age 50, I did my first ever resume and did my first ever interview, and that was with the Oregon Hearing Society. They hired me. I was a shoo-in with the funeral directors, you know. And the Oregon Hearing Society, I went through that with them. He has been the best mentor possible. He's taught me a lot about playing offense and defense, and also diplomacy and compromise. I learned much of my lingo and lobbyist mentality from John. Phrases like, and these are just some of my favorites, there are so many. I have to give a little story with this one. About 10 years ago, I was about to testify before, I think it was a Senate committee. Legislature was in session, and we had a bill that we were supporting actually, and I was a little nervous about it because it was going to be the first time I ever testified in front of a committee. And John said, "Well, why don't you just send me what you're going to say?" So I emailed it to him, and I get an email back. He's very brief with his answers, anytime. So I was surprised he talked as long as he did up here. But I got an email back from John that said, "That's perfect. Now don't read it, ad-lib it." And I was instantly petrified of, how am I going to do that? But it was actually the best advice I could have gotten. That it didn't sound scripted when I did. So I practiced my ad-lib. 5 of the longest days of my life. Other phrases like, and Ryan's heard this many times on the radio, and John gets full credit for this, "Now it's time to step on their air hose." They're going to have to deal with us now. And my absolute favorite, If that guy wasn't such a commie, he'd probably be a pretty good guy. You might have guessed John leans just a little bit to the right. Rich, I took your wife to a prom.
Wally, you were home at 9 o'clock. That's all there is to that one.
I lost my place. Slumber dogs and Eterna fries. That was just poetry. I'll tell you. Yeah, and I don't know if you caught it, but there was a picture of me at a prom, and that was Rich's wife. They weren't married at the time. Well, now, I don't know. You're quite a bit older than I am. Maybe she was. Jerry, you kind of stole my thunder with the iBank story. We did, when back in the day, funeral directors were eye enucleation technicians, which means if somebody was an eye donor, the funeral directors, the embalmers, actually did the retrieval of the eyes. And the Lions Eye Bank the local Lions clubs had provided lists to the funeral homes. So when you did an eye enucleation and you had the eyes ready to get to Portland for transplant, you would contact the people on the list of Lions, and Jerry's name was on that list. You'd just start calling Lions Club members until you got somebody that would answer the phone. And those that had phones. And then they would come down to the funeral home, and they'd either take the eyes to Greyhound, or if the schedule didn't match up, they would drive the eyes to Portland, to Good Sam Hospital. And very noble work. And if it was during the day, I would start at the opposite end of the list of where Jerry was. If it was between the hours of about 11 o'clock and 4 a.m., I would call Jerry. I just had him on a string. Because I knew he'd answer, I knew he'd come down there, I knew we'd joke around for a while, and then he'd go do that. I could always count on it, but I had his number. He serves with the Lions. He actually serves at the pancake breakfast, and I love that. I love coming through that line and having you serve me. He's on the school board. He's my counterpart as president of the Rebel Sports Foundation. The most overachieving athlete I've ever known. I mean, look at him. He's no specimen, I can tell you that. But he's relatively smart, figured out at an early age how to outsmart opponents. He is the perfect doubles partner in tennis, because we could all just do our athletic, good-looking, sculpted thing. Jerry would figure out how to make us win. Of course, he got heavy at times, but the brain was huge in our team's success. We've played a lot of sports together where the main tool that you have is a projectile, tennis and golf. And when things aren't going well, sometimes they leave your hands. And I've learned over the years of watching Jerry golf that the safest place to stand when he's hitting a golf ball is directly in front of him. Brian, I am so glad you keep yourself fit, because I would hate for you to get any heavier, because I've been carrying you for years. I have to tell a story about Ryan. I apologize to Renee and the rest of my family and anybody else that's ever heard this story before. First year that we broadcast games together, and I need to tell you that a lot of people don't know, Ryan and I met 15 minutes before we went on the air for the first time together. And it was after I had worked with his dad, Ray. Ray, would you stand up for a minute? Radio Ray Pitts. itself into working the games with Ryan. And we met 15 minutes. It was a West Albany football home game. And we went through that season, and then we went through the basketball season. And West Albany didn't make the playoffs that year. And so the station, Philomath girls were doing really well. I think they were ranked number 1 at the time.
I believe so, yeah.
And so they got some sponsors, and they put us on the Philomath girls broadcasts. And, I mean, we'd never seen this team before. We'd never called girls sports before. This was our first year together, and the first playoff game was at Philomath, and I think it was like Willamina or something like that. Do you usually remember this kind of stuff?
Willamina.
Willamina. I appreciate you backing me up. I thought for sure you'd correct me and say, no, this was the score. But that's kind of what this story's about. And Ryan, they set us up on a rickety old card table up in the corner of called the mezzanine or the balcony. Right up there in the corner was a dark old wood gym. I don't know if any of you ever been in the Philomath gym, but they set us up there. They handed us rosters when we came in the building. We quickly set up. We were running a little bit late. We got set up. We called the station. We did the testing. We tested our mics. We did everything that we were going to do. Ryan looked at the roster, both sides, for home and visitors, for the first quarter, set the roster aside the rest of the time, and never looked at that roster again. Wow. Starters, reserves. He knew names, numbers, both teams, starters and reserves. Never looked at that roster again. He's got an amazing photographic memory, and it has served him very, very well. You are very good at what you do. And yet, he fails to mention that after the glass pounding incident at Bend, and yes, I did, I got excited. Wes scored that touchdown. I can still picture Will Murphy running down the sideline. They get that touchdown. And before I know it, I had one of those moments. I do this at home. I'm watching sports. I'll jump up out of my chair and be standing in front of the TV going, yes, and I have no idea how I got there. This was one of those moments. And I pounded that glass, and those dudes turned around. There were about 4 guys that looked like lumberjacks, turned around and looked right at us. And I looked down, and Ryan's in the corner in the fetal position.
I'm still calling the game.
You're still calling the game. That was one big puddle. He was worthless when we were trying to get out of there, too. I could go on and on about these guys, and I won't. This has been longer than a Will Tucker auction.
That's good.
The goals of CASA are admirable. The support that we need to give organizations like CASA, I can't emphasize enough how worthy they are. I can't emphasize enough how much I appreciate the fact that all of you came out to do this tonight. It's a weeknight. I know it's a long night. It's most of us have to work tomorrow. I get one shot in. You got a month to think about stuff to get back at me. But I do want to thank you. I do feel flattered by this. I know that let me just say it this way. I do not take this lightly that I was asked to be a part of this in this role. And I do feel very fortunate for that, and to live in a community like this that can support events like this. And I just truly thank you very much.
I knew the tall joke was coming, and I'm 6'4", and you're 5'0". I got the last laugh, buddy. You know, the old silver cloud deal there. I'm going to get half price. 'Cause, you know, they sell those things by the foot, don't they? You go, well, you get another foot, you get a cup holder. So anyway, we'll see who's laughing at the end there, Mr. I have some thank yous, and I would like Wendy and Bob, when I'm done, there may be people I've omitted, so feel free to speak up. But first of all, I want to thank Wally for being such a good sport and helping Kiwanis raise funds to support CASA's work on behalf of children in Lynn County who have been abused and neglected. And I'd like to thank John and Jerry and Ryan for their comments tonight. And I'd like the committee to please stand. Committee Chair Wendy Brownell and the entire roast committee for working so hard and giving countless hours to plan this event. The major sponsor for tonight's event was Bicoastal Media, the presenting sponsor, Bertram's Metals, and corporate host, National Food Sales and Selmet Incorporated. Let's give them a round of applause. So I've got a list of table hosts here. I've announced them a couple times, and each version's been a little bit different, so please let me know if I leave anybody out. Don and Ann Boyce, Roland Brower and Tim Finley from Farmers Insurance, Coastal Farm, Clay DeLuhash of Edward Jones, Ron and Diane Loney, Ralph Scariano, Chris Scariano from Edward Jones. Did I forget anybody? We good? How about a round of applause for our table? I'd like to acknowledge Valley Catering for the great dinner and Calapooya Brewery for the beer. Northwest Design House / Budget Blinds for sponsoring the West Albany cheerleaders and the rest of our donors who are listed in the program. Table hosts, don't forget your bottle of wine, and you can take the wreath, but not the stand. So, Wendy, did I get everybody? Bob?
The Coles.
Coles, yes. The last minute we had Coles volunteers step up to help out with this event in a major way. So thank you to Coles volunteers. Wally has one more thing that he would like to add.
Just hang out for a minute. I can't believe I introduced my Pinko Kami in-laws here, Duck fans, but I failed to introduce my aunt and uncle Greg and Mary Kropalik, who played for Oregon State. I apologize for that, and I really do like you guys.
So with that, I thank you once again for your contributions to CASA. I thank you for all the hard work in putting this evening together and for being here, and good night and drive safe. Thank you.
Nice. Hi, Miss Auntie.